Yep. Back. Hey, everybody, welcome in. I'm Francis Beck with John Simon. We're live at St. Francis High School. The 8 weeks of high school football has wrapped up, and we are just a couple days away from the playoffs, and boy, am I excited.
Yeah, no, really the first time in 2 years that the Section 6 playoffs is back. Last year, we obviously had a modified version in the spring, but back to full playoffs, back to the road to the Bills Stadium, Highmark Stadium now. It's been the Ralph, the Cap. Now it's Highmark. We may call it a bunch of different things throughout the broadcast. We got a ton of things to think about. The last thing is the name of the stadium. Regardless, though, that's the goal over the next few weeks for these teams here in Section 6 to get to the home of the Buffalo Bills, get that Section 6 title, and be in the state playoffs for the first time, like we said, in 2 years.
Yeah, it'll be certainly a fun atmosphere for those players. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience getting to play in the home of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
All right, so let's explain what we're doing today. So tomorrow is the official seeding meeting for Section 6 when they officially release the brackets. That's tomorrow morning, I believe, at 9. But our team has kind of been crunching the numbers, and we're pretty sure we know what the brackets will look like. We're about 100% on most of these. Class C, it's going to be a little funky because there's 3 divisions and there's weird tiebreakers. But
we don't know the specifics of all that. We're just doing our best guesses. But most of the stuff, pretty concrete, it looks like. So we have a good idea of what the playoff picture is going to look like. So don't take us 100%, concrete. Don't quote us on everything on this. But this is what we expect the playoff picture to look like.
All right, let's start in Double A. We've learned this afternoon Bennett defeated Niagara Falls. They clinched the 1 seed, and this year there's an extra. Only 7 teams in Class Double A, so the Tigers get a bye. They get a bye. Lancaster's the 2 seed. The 3 seed is Clarence. 4 is Will North because they were able to beat Orchard Park. That means the Quakers are on 5. We'll have a rematch, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then 6 is Niagara Falls, and 7 is Hutch Tech. John, when I look at those top 4, I wasn't necessarily expecting that heading into the season.
Yeah, but no matter what the standings look like right now heading into the playoffs, the storyline of the AA bracket is it Lancaster getting their 6th consecutive championship in Section 6, or is somebody finally going to knock them off? Bennett beat them in the regular season, but it looks like, despite Bennett being the 1 seed, it looks like Lancaster is the favorite. We haven't seen a team win 6 straight Section 6 titles since Sweet Home did in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They're the only team in Section 6 to ever do it. So Lancaster is on the cusp of history, Francis. But the talk of it right now is which team do we think has the best chance to unseat the Legends as the top team in AA. And there's a couple teams that have a chance. Like we said, Bennett knocked them off in the regular season. Will North ended the year hot. They had a big win over Orchard Park last night. The Quakers, they've got a veteran quarterback, maybe the best in Western New York still, in Ben Gasella, despite them being a 5 seed. And not to mention, I think a lot of us are overlooking Clarence. I think they're poised to make some noise in AA as well.
Yeah, I was about to say Clarence has probably been one of the surprise teams of the year, if not the surprise team of the year. We've known they were in the middle of the pack for a long time in AA, and this year they just kind of taken that leap into that top tier of AA, led by, of course, running back Scott Raymond, who is one of the leading tacklers in all of Section 6. And so I think the Red Devils are going to be poised to make a run in these playoffs.
And that's the thing, too. With all the AA teams making the playoffs this year, with there only being 7 teams, Clarence and Lancaster, I don't want to knock Niagara Falls and Hutch Tech too much, but they have, relatively easier games to play. The only one really in the first round that's a toss-up is Will North Orchard Park. And it's interesting, Francis, that we get a rematch immediately. They just played last night. They'll play a week later. It's not too often you get the same team back-to-back weeks in high school. So I wonder how the Quakers will bounce back against Will North after what I think was a surprising loss last night.
Well, Tom was telling me one of their top receivers, Macabelli, was injured, so if he's able to come back, that'll be helpful for the Quakers. But that was a back-and-forth, very close game, so I'm hoping the rematch lives up to the hype.
Yeah, and the winner of that game takes on Bennett in the semifinals. And Orchard Park, while they are the 5 seed, Francis, they're the only team that knocked off the Tigers in the regular season. So while they may have a chip on their shoulder being the 5 seed, having to win 2 road games in order to get to the stadium, I think the Quakers have as good a shot of anybody to beat the Tigers if they can get past the Spartans. But that I want to bring, when I mentioned the chip on the shoulder of the Orchard Park Quakers, I want to circle back to what we said was the main topic of AA, and that is who is going to unseat Lancaster. They have to have such a chip on their shoulder against the Legends because year after year, I'm not trying to motivate them or, throw more fire on top of the fire that is between Lancaster and Orchard Park, but they just got to be so sick of seeing the Legends win. And they got a path right now where if they can beat Will North and then beat Bennett again like they did in the regular season, they could be on a collision course for Lancaster at the stadium and finally have a chance to knock off the Legends.
I would say Lancaster Orchard Park is one of the biggest non-traditional rivalries in Western New York. Obviously, we have the crosstown rivalries. We have Canisius Joes. We also have Canisius Frannies, which we're going to talk about later on. But
that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah, it's rivalry night. It's rivalry week.
Canisius St. Francis game.
But Lancaster Orchard Park, those teams do not like each other, and that goes from the coaching staffs down to the players. So if we see them at the stadium, which we've seen a bunch before, that would be a lot of fun.
And I think that potential second-round matchup of Lancaster-Clarence, I mean, like I said, you don't want to automatically pencil them past Hutch Tech and Niagara Falls. Upsets are possible. But Clarence-Lancaster, they played in the playoffs a few years ago at Clarence. Lancaster went on the road as a 5 seed, and they were able to go on and win another Section 6 title. So that'll be an interesting rematch. Like I said, Clarence, I think they're being overlooked as people see Bennett and Lancaster as the favorites and then look at Orchard Park as a team that could make noise too. So Clarence, I think they're in a spot where they could definitely make some noise.
All right, let's go to Class A North where we avoided chaos.
Well, wait, hang on. Do we want to do predictions of all the classes at the end? All right, yeah, we'll do it. We'll save it at the end.
Yeah,
you can see how much we planned for this, folks. I shouldn't say that. Francis did the planning. I did nothing. I'm here to just spew takes. Let's go to A North.
A North. All right, so we avoided chaos. So there were 4 scenarios.
Thank God. The chaos.
Yeah. So there were basically 4 scenarios going into this week because Grand Island played Sweet Home and Kenmore West played Kenmore East. So obviously, Kenmore East, if Grand Island wins, loses, West wins, loses, 4 different scenarios. Now, the crazy scenario would have been if Grand Island would have won and Kenmore West would have lost to Kenmore East, which should not happen. But I'll be honest, it didn't happen. But the potential was there in this rivalry.
Let's not say it shouldn't happen. It's rivalry week. You
it's
throw everything
exactly
out the window.
Exactly, and I've been part of that rivalry, and I'll tell you right now, I've been on. I know zero win Kenmore East teams that have been much better Kenmore West teams. But nevertheless, Kenmore West was able to win, and we avoided chaos, which would have been a 4-way tie for second place. And I'm telling you, I went through all of the tiebreakers, and there was still no clear winner. They would have had to do some kind of coin flip, or the committee would have had to talk it out and come to a decision together.
And what an unfortunate draw for Star Point, right? I mean, 4-2 record in the division, the same as Sweet Home and Lockport. They end up being on the outside of the playoffs. They'll play South Park in a non-Section 6 postseason
Chuck
game.
Funky Bowl.
Right, so they'll play that, and that should be a good game next week. And that's one of the interesting storylines in Class A altogether. No South Park in the playoffs this year. The defending Section 6 champions, they won at Jamestown last year. Everybody remembers the big run by Keith Jackson to win that for the Sparks. So they're out this year. No matter what, we'll have a new champion in Class A. And when you look at A North, how can you not see Grand Island as the favorite, as they just ran through that division during the regular season? You saw an example of it. They beat Sweet Home last night 51-14.
Yeah, they took care of everybody. Star Point, we had Lockport they took care of. Any team we thought they had a chance, they just took care of them. To A South now.
Whoa, we're jumping the gun here. Let's highlight some of these first round. We'll look at the A South matchup as a whole, and then we'll jump into the first round matchup. Sure, but we got some things to talk about with some of these teams. I mean, I want to talk Sweet Home. I want to talk Lockport. But let's look at the A South picture too. A
South was a little bit easier. Now Hamburg won. They beat Frontier. However, they only beat him by 2 points. So because of point differential, they end up as the 3 seed. As the 4 seed in the A South division.
Other interesting thing with Grand Island real quick, too, is they didn't play Kenmore West in the regular season. So with the Blue Devils as the 2 seed, they have a chance to play Grand Island. And while everybody says that the Vikings were the top team all year in A North, Kenmore West is sitting right there and thinking, we have a chance to play them in the second round, trip to the stadium on the line, and we could prove that we were the best team in A North all along.
And I'll say this, if you want to say Grand Island's the best team, Kenmore West is the hottest team.
Yeah.
When they moved Jermaine Atkins to running back, he immediately set a school record a few weeks later against North Tonawanda. He followed it up with Starpoint, a team we thought that was one of the best in the division, and scored 5 against them in a big game against the Spartans. So Kenmore West might be the hottest team heading into the postseason.
But when you look over at the A South Division, we talked about it from week 1. This league, one of the toughest in all of Section 6, if not the toughest. And, we just talked about it. South Park, not in the playoffs this year.
Leader is West Seneca West.
Right, 2 really good teams. We knew from week 1 there were going to be a couple good teams from the A South Division that missed out this year. But when you look at the teams from that group, the one that sticks out is obviously the Jamestown Red Raiders, as they might be the favorites to take home Class A this year, which we should mention, not to jinx them, they were last year, and look how that worked out.
But you know what? They bring all those guys back, and I'm sure those guys remember very well what happened against South Park, the most heartbreaking way to lose it in overtime on a 2-point conversion.
At home, too.
At home. So those guys, I know, were focused coming into the season, and I'm sure they're not looking over anybody.
And you just you talked about the chaos that we avoided for the most part in A North, but the A South Division, too, right at the top of it, league records the same for Frontier, Will South, and Hamburg across the board. That 2 through 4 seed from that league, any one of those teams, all of them are solid. They can make noise in the playoffs as well. And we'll circle back and look at the A matchups as a whole, or at least the predictions, but we can look at the matchups right now.
Yeah, why don't we actually pull up the bracket on our screen? You can see it'll be Grand Island hosting Hamburg. We'll have Frontier hosting Sweet Home.
Yeah, the crossover. We'll mention the crossover.
Yeah, these are a crossover because it's 2 divisions in the Class A.
So the top 2 seeds from the north will host the 3 and 4 seeds from the south, and vice versa. And there's some interesting ones here. I like, the Grand Island-Hamburg matchup is interesting. Grand Island, the number 1 seed from the north side. We said they're probably the favorites from that league. Let's see how they fare against the teams from the south, because that was obvious. I think it was pretty clear that was the tougher division of the 2 this season.
Yeah, I don't think the biggest test Grand Island probably had was a loss to Orchard Park early in the season. I believe they lost by maybe 20, 30 points. So obviously that's AA, not A, but just to show you that's, the difference in competition.
They only lost by 11, Francis. Give the Vikings some credit.
Oh, they only lost by 11. I thought that was a bigger game.
Now, they came back in the second half. They were down big at halftime.
Yeah.
But no, the Vikings, they've won 6 in a row. And, they're not giving up very many points either. They shut out Star Point. They only give up 12 to Lockport, 6 to Niagara Wheatfield. They only give up 14 to Sweet Home, who they can score a lot of points. They've got a ton of athletes. So, you talked about Ken West being hot. Grand Island's hot, too. But I'm interested to see how they fare against the team from the South Division, because Hamburg has played a good team pretty much every single week.
All right, then we have Frontier Sweet Home. Battle of teams, somewhat. They both kind of run that big. Frontier runs that triple option big wing. Sweet Home also has that big wing in their back pocket, but they also like to run spread, so that could be an interesting matchup as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. Sweet Home's just had an up and down year, really. They get some big wins to start the year over Amherst, then they beat out Kenmore West in a close game. Surprisingly get beat by Lockport 42-0. I talked to some people at Sweet Home a couple weeks ago. They still can't believe really what happened there. Even talked to Kyrie Demos, a friend of ours. He's a Lockport alum. He couldn't believe that Lockport won that game by the margin that they did, but they bounced back with a couple of wins over North Tonawanda McKinley. They survived St. Joe's at home. But then they ended the season with the big loss to Grand Island. And no matter how talented Sweet Home is, and I say this as a Sweet Home alum myself, they can sometimes get in their heads too much. And despite all the talent and all the speed and all the athleticism that they have, sometimes they either play down to their competition or they psych themselves out before a big game and just don't play up to their potential. They had the speed and the talent to play with anybody in Class A, I think, even with Jamestown. But they're going to have a really tough road game to start here against Frontier. Frontier has beaten some good teams. They've beaten Will South. They played Jamestown relatively close. They played Hamburg to a 2-point game last night. it's a tough game for Sweet Home on the road to start, but I think it's a toss-up. I think if the Panthers focus and play the best game that they can, they're going to be trouble for the Falcons at home.
If they can take advantage on the outside of their speed, they have that would be their best game plan. Moving on to the next matchup, Jamestown Lockport. Red Raiders, we mentioned, have been on a tear. They face a Lockport team who, let's be honest, the past 2 seasons they've been perennial 0 or 1 win seasons, and so it's exciting to see the Lions take this big step into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, it's surprising, I think, how much noise they made. I mean, when you were looking at teams in the A North this year, I don't really think that Lockport was one of the ones that you thought was going to make its way into the playoffs. I mean, I talked about how much weaker I thought the A North division was compared to the South, and I thought that maybe like McKinley or Starpoint was going to be that 4th playoff team in there with Sweet Home, Grand Island, Ken West, but Lockport's played well. Like I said, they blew out Sweet Home. They played Grand Island not too well on the road, but, you know, it's interesting to see how they'll play because they also ended the season with a tough loss to South Park, a non-playoff team. Now they also got to go to Jamestown. That's a tough place to go for the first round of the playoffs.
I will say what helped Lockport this year, especially when we go through those, when I went through those tiebreakers, is the fact that the games they won by blowouts.
That's true,
and that's a big deal when you talk about tiebreakers, and it's also a confidence thing too. You know that you can beat a team by 20-plus points because we know they have that explosive offense.
And I think it's a good, you know, I don't want to call it a tune-up game for Jamestown because it is a playoff game, and I don't want to disrespect Lockport, but no matter who they play in that 2 North versus 3 South game, Kenmore, Westboro South, that's going to be a team that's going to be ready to play. And Jamestown, they're going to get everybody's tough game. They have the target on their back, and it's the playoffs. You add all that in, everybody's going to be throwing everything they have at Jamestown, and I think Lockport is going to be a tough enough opponent to really get them ready for what's to come in the semifinals, which I think leads us, unless you have anything else on Jamestown, I think that leads us into our final matchup in Class A.
And it's
which
probably
I think,
the favorite.
I think this is the most intriguing matchup in the first round out of these 4.
You know, I'm going to be honest, this is on a Saturday, so we can do the Class A game. If we have a crew available, I think Frank's going to try to get someone there because that is going to be fantastic. I think these are 2 evenly matched teams, fairly even. Obviously, we don't know the divisions, but as far as this first round, these are 2 pretty evenly matched teams, and they have exciting offenses.
And you talked about it. You said Kenmore West is the hottest team in Section 6 right now. Williamsville South might be right there with them. I mean, the Billies, tough start to the season. They lose at Frontier in kind of blowout fashion, 34-7. Then they lose to Jamestown at home week 2, but they give the Red Raiders a close game. They cut it to 5 by the end. They made it interesting at the end of the game. And then they rattle off 6 wins in a row, and that's how they go into the playoffs. Winners of 6 straight. I mean, they blew out Williamsville East, dropped a 50-burger on them last night. I know the Flames aren't the best of teams, but Williamsville South is hot. They beat Hamburg. That's a big win. That's really the only good team that they have beaten, so I'm interested to see how they play against another playoff team. But I would love to see a matchup of Williamsville South against Jamestown. That's a playoff rematch of last year.
And yet you saw that game during the regular season. Will South came back in the second half and almost beat the Red Raiders.
Right, but like I said, that's also a rematch in the playoffs of last year. Jamestown beat Will South in the semifinals. So if the Billies can beat Kenmore West, I think they might have the best team makeup to beat Jamestown because I think they've got the speed that matches with the Red Raiders. I think they've got the offense that can control time of possession and run the ball and match the Red Raiders point for point. We saw it in that game. They lost 42-37. They can put up points, and I think with the way that they've grown throughout the season, especially their quarterback, I think that they have the best chance to knock off the Red Raiders. Now it would be a huge upset if they could win at Jamestown week before the Section 6 championship games.
All right, why don't we take a break? We might have skipped one. I apologize to our producer, Heidi. We may have skipped one. If not, let's take break one now. For just a minute or so, we'll get our thoughts together for Class B, talk about what happened there, then get into C, and continue on. You're watching the Section 6 football preview show right here on Western New York Athletics.
When it's time to sell your home, start with a visit to howardhanna.com, ranked the #1 real estate site for sellers. A few clicks will show you the sales price you can expect for your home. We can get you the most money in the quickest amount of time because we know where the local buyers are and how to reach them. So if it's time to sell your home, visit howardhanna.com today, and we'll match you with a local Howard Hanna agent to sell your home fast.
I love being home.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you. Western New York Immediate Care provides quick, quality care for non-emergent injuries and illnesses. Go to wnyimmediatecare.com for more information.
All right, and we're back at St. Francis High School for the Section 6 playoff preview show. Francis Beck joined by John Simon. We talked about the double A's. We talked about the A's. Let's get into B, where it was pretty simple situation. Both these divisions, both the 3 and the 4 seed teams faced off against each other
Last night.
Well,
one today,
one
last
last night. Winner got the 3 seed, loser got the 4 seed. So this was pretty simple. Let's start in the North. It's Western New York Maritime, the top seed. 2 is Albion, 3 is Maryvale, and 4 is Cheektowaga. Let's be honest. 5 years ago, you would have never seen anything like this. When you see Maritime, Team 1 didn't exist, and then Cheektowaga as a 4th seed. I mean, they were a team that was perennially winning the Class B classification, and now they're in the 4 seed.
Yeah, well, you also talk about that's history 5 years ago. Recent history, Maritime looking at a chance to be three-peat champions of Section 6 Class B. They would be the first team to do it since Alden from 2010 to 2012. But they got a tough road because, we talked about it. A South Division a lot tougher than the A North, I think, this year. And I think it's the same to be said for the B South Division against the B North this year. I don't want to take anything away from the B North. Albion played Medina tough last night. Medina, one of the best Class C teams in the entire state. But Maritime, I think that they had an easy ride this year. And I think that, not an easy ride, but North
in
is
their
the easier division. Iroquois had tough games this year, and I think with Maritime, if they get to the finals and stack up against one of the top teams from the South, they're going to have a tough game. I mean, their first-round game against Pioneer, I don't think is going to be an easy one. That's a team where if they win the time of possession and they control the ball and get their run game going, they could give Maritime a scare, I think, on the road. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's look at Class B as a whole still. Or at least in the South, too. We only talked about the North.
Let's get to the South. Let's show the South standings. It's Iroquois coming out on top. Remember, they ended up in the final last year with Maritime, so they're the top seed in the South Division. They beat West Seneca East, who's in the 2 seed. And then 3 is Olean, who beat Pioneer last night. And then the Pioneer Panthers are in the 4 seed in South.
And I think the big storyline for Class B, Francis, is are Iroquois and Maritime on a collision course for a Section 6 championship rematch? Both undefeated in their leagues. Both have played very well this year, but both have tough rides. Like we said, I think Maritime has a little bit of a tougher first matchup against Pioneer. Iroquois will be facing Cheektowaga, who's coming off a loss to Maryvale today. But both of them set up, I think, in decent positions to get back to the championship game and face off in a rematch.
Yeah, let's look at the bracket real quick. We have we talked about Pioneer, the 1 seed in North, taking on Maritime taking on Pioneer. West Seneca East will take on Maryvale. We'll host them. Iroquois will host Cheektowaga. And then Albion will host Olean. Wow, man, what a trip for Olean, going all the way to Albion.
Yeah, I know, and I think that's one of the 2 big first-round matchups in Class B. Olean I got a chance to see last night at Pioneer, and I really, really like this Olean team. Their quarterback, Riley Silvas, threw 3 touchdowns last night. Great runner as well. Took about half their rushing attempts in that game on the offensive side. I mean, they control the game at Pioneer. Pioneer is a strictly running team, and they control the time, like the flow of the game with their run game. And Olean completely took that away from them. And Olean, they lost to Iroquois. They lost to West Seneca East, so that's how they finished in 3rd in that division. But I think that they could make some noise. It's a long trip up to Albion, but Albion's coming off of a loss to Medina. It's a non-leaguer, but still a loss. Olean coming off of a big win on the road. Let's see if they can do it again this upcoming weekend. I think they've got a great shot to upset Albion on the road and go on to face Maritime in the semifinals.
That is a long bus ride, though.
That's a
on
very
the way
long
there,
bus ride.
Hopefully they take a break on the way there to stretch their legs. But you know what? If they lose, that's an even longer bus ride home. So they'll be motivated to win that one. Before we finish up here, I just want to make this point. I'm seeing all these local rankings and these state rankings, and they're absolutely disrespecting Maritime. And I think it's probably because they faced Canisius and Bennett early in the year, and they lost both of them, so they go by record. But you look at what happened in that Bennett game. They only gave up one offensive touchdown. The other was a punt return for a touchdown. So, and that's a Bennett team that's literally the number 1 seed in AA. And then we know Canisius, who we're going to talk about later again as they take on St. Francis, is one of the top teams in the state. So I think there's some major disrespect going on locally and statewide for Maritime. I think you can make a case. They might be one of the top small schools, at least top 3 in all of Western New York.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. And we'll get into our predictions for all the classes at the end. We still got C and D to get to. Do we want to jump down to C now?
Let's jump down to C, and then we'll take a break after C.
So we get into C, and really this, I think, is the group, Francis, that we're still the least sure about.
Yeah, so we have the bracket up on your screen. We're only about 90% sure because there's only 3 divisions, and then what further kind of complicates this is that the C division played an extra league game, so you can't do it straight by record. I think they had to do like a win-loss percentage in league, and then you have a point differential average. But this is what we think it's going to look like. We're very confident in the top 3. Medina's at number 1, Depew's number 2, Fredonia's number 3. Then we have Salamanca at 4. The number 5 seed, I'm putting Lackawanna, 6 Akron, 7 Southwestern, and 8 I have as Eden. And we have some interesting matchups as well. Southwest. Let's start with Medina. We know that they are probably one of the most complete teams in all of Section 6, at least in Class C. They have dominated so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, if they aren't still, they were ranked the number 1 Class C team in New York State. So they're obviously the team to beat. I mean, Depew had a great season, but they're facing Southwestern, who they gave Medina a good run in the Section 6 Class C title game last year. Fredonia, they also, I think, just capped off an undefeated regular season. So it's not going to be, a sure thing for Medina to repeat as sectional champs here, I think.
Yeah, and and you mentioned Southwestern. Again, they were in the sectional final last year, only the 7th seed. If they can figure their stuff out by this weekend, they can pull off an upset against you. They still have Aiden Kennedy, who I believe is one of the better quarterbacks in all of Western New York. So if he can, he can be on his game, they can go to Depew, win that one, and make it to the semifinals.
You also have Lackawanna as the 5 seed. If it shakes out that way and they can beat Salamanca on the road, they played Medina close at home for about a half, maybe almost 3 quarters back in the regular season. I think it was week 3 or 4. Lackawanna gets a second shot at Medina. They might have a chance to give the Mustangs a scare too. So I think it's definitely, Medina is the heavy favorite here. But between Depew, Fredonia, and I think, Southwestern as well, they've just got the experience there in the playoffs. I think any one of those teams could make some noise too. Thankfully for Medina, all 3 of those teams on the other side of the bracket.
All right, why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back. We'll do Class T, and then we'll do our predictions for the rest of the playoffs.
And we'll jump into a little pregame for St. Francis and Canisius as well.
Yeah, we'll do that, as well later in the show. That's a big matchup. I know these teams are excited for that. So you're watching the Section 6 playoff preview show on Western New York Athletics.
When it's time to sell your home, start with a visit to howardhanna.com, ranked the #1 real estate site for sellers. A few clicks will show you the sales price you can expect for your home. We can get you the most money in the quickest amount of time because we know where the local buyers are and how to reach them. So if it's time to sell your home, visit howardhanna.com today, and we'll match you with a local Howard Hanna agent to sell your home fast.
I love being home.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you. Western New York Immediate Care provides quick, quality care for non-emergent injuries and illnesses. Go to WNYimmediatecare.com for more information.
All right, we're back here at St. Francis High School. Very special show, Section 6 football preview, live from St. Francis. It's a little chilly. This is perfect weather for me.
Yeah, no, it's a crisp fall evening. I said I loved the feel of spring playoff football last year. The sectional championships were being played during early mid-May. It was like 60 degrees, sunny. It was beautiful, but this is true football weather.
All right, and we do have some, I guess, sad news to pass along as we get to Class D. We have learned that the bottom two seeds, Cattaraugus, Little Valley, and Silver Creek, have decided not to go into the D playoffs. So instead of 6 teams, it'll only be 4. We believe that the D is just going to take off the first week and then play semifinals next week. So it's the first seed is going to be Randolph, 2 is CSP, 3 is Franklinville, Ellicottville, and then 4 is Portville.
And really, this was a 3-team race. I don't want to knock Portville. They certainly have a shot. They'll have a tough first-round game. They go from getting to host Silver Creek in the first round to now having to go and playing at 8-0 Randolph. So that's kind of a tough swing for Portville. But really, I mean, this is a 3-team race. Randolph's undefeated. CSP back in Class D after being up in C last year, and they didn't make it to the C finals. They lost to Southwestern in the semis last year in the playoffs. And then you got Franklinville, Ellicottville, the defending champions, where it's interesting. They're the defending champions, but they're the 3 seed. And you've got Randolph, who's undefeated, as the 1. And then you've got CSP as the 2, who wasn't in D last year, and they were the 2-time champions the 2 years
State
before
champion
that.
before that.
Right, so it's almost as if it's CSP's championship that they never lost, and Franklinville, Ellicottville is the defending champions, and then Randolph is the undefeated 1 seed. So you've got a case to be made for each of those 3 teams to be the titled favorite in that playoff bracket.
Frank watched that CSP Randolph game, and one of the things he told me afterwards was that this was Randolph. They've been looking forward to this game for a long time. Those 2 teams are rivals. They've been getting beat up by CSP the past few years. So finally, they felt they had the team that could really put something together, and it was just kind of a coming out party. We know we're better than CSP, and we're going to take it out on them. So they got that win. You wonder if they'll have that same energy the second time, or if CSP can come in and match that energy, knowing Randolph, can actually beat us. We need to really bring our A game in that game.
Yeah, Randolph, like I said, undefeated, 8-0 going into the playoffs. And like you said, they beat CSP once this year. It'll be tough to do it again. They also beat Franklinville-Ellicottville, the defending champs in the regular season, looking to avenge a loss to Franklinville-Ellicottville in the semis last year. Randolph didn't even make it to the sectional finals. So we'll see. Like I said, a case could be made for any one of those 3 teams. We'll see what we each think, who will come out of there when we get into predictions, which we might be ready to do now. It's a 6:15, about 45 minutes to kick off for St. Francis and Canisius. We'll get our pregame coverage of that started in just a little bit, but we still got Section 6 playoff talk to do. So if you want to get into predictions here now, Francis, like we said, we're not sure if these are the finalized brackets. These are just our guesses. I think we pretty much know AA, A, and B, C, and D. Well, D is pretty much set too. C is the only one I think that's really open to be changing. So don't fully quote us on this, but this is just what we're thinking everything will look like.
All right, let's go to AA predictions. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this. Bennett has won Class A. They've won Class B, Class C. I think this is Bennett's year. The biggest thing that always holds Bennett back is usually discipline and looking over. Now, they did get caught up early in the season. I think they perhaps overlooked Orchard Park in the regular season. I think that's why they lost to them. But so I'm going to say that Bennett has figured that out. They're not going to allow that to look over anybody. And I think this is going to be their year to win AA. And I didn't look it up, but I can't imagine what team has won a sectional title in 4 different classifications. That's got to be unheard of.
Yeah, no, and I think that they got the best shot, too. I think Bennett and Orchard Park are the 2 teams with the best shot to unseat Lancaster as the AA champions, and those 2 teams could clash in the semifinals in the Tigers and the Quakers. And just with the way that Orchard Park has ended the season, the loss to Will North, just some of the games that they've struggled in, I think that, like you said, I think Bennett's got the best shot. And while I don't want to write off Clarence, like I said, I feel like everybody's overlooking them. But they're going to have a tough matchup against Lancaster. I think the Legends are hungry. I think that with them having home field advantage over the Red Devils in that potential semifinals game is a big deal. So evidently, I think it ends up being Bennett-Lancaster at Highmark Stadium. And I agree with you, Francis. I think the Tigers unseat the Legends and win the AA Section 6 championship.
Class A, I think it's Jamestown's to lose. We talked about what happened last year when they faced South Park, a heartbreaking loss in the final. I think this team is motivated. Again, they brought a lot of those back. A lot of these kids played as sophomores again in the AA and they competed against Lancaster and Orchard Park back then. So I think this team is locked and ready. I really think if they're going to be focused, they'll beat whoever they face in the second round. Kenmore West, Will South, make it to the stadium. And then I think on the other side, I think it's going to be Grand Island, but they're going to have a tough first two matches.
Yeah, I think the Grand Island having to face that South team in Hamburg is tough. And you know what? I just really think that Jamestown, they are the team to beat. But I do think that they have a shot at playing Williamsville South in the finals because with the way that the bracket shapes out, you've got Will South at Kenmore West. Will South would play Grand Island or Hamburg, the winner of that. I think Will South would be a tough game for Grand Island. I think Will South has the speed to beat Grand Island. I think they can match Grand Island's strength up front. So I think Jamestown and Williamsville South meet in the championship game.
Well, no, they're the other side of the bracket.
But no, because of the way that it is, the North, that's the one South. So the way that it's on here, the South would be over here.
No,
Yeah.
they would play.
Kenmore West is from the North, so the two from the North side would be over here.
Jamestown would play, because if you were to go to the second round, if the higher seeds went out, it would be the higher seed, lower seed, higher seed, lower seed.
Okay, right, but isn't because Grand Island is the one from the North, wouldn't that side of the bracket have the 2 seed from the North as Kenmore West?
No, they would have the 2 seed from the South. It's designed so the top 2 seeds from each division would theoretically face off in the final.
So, all right, so I had the brackets mixed up a little bit. Either way, I think Williamsville South and Jamestown, if they meet, I think South beats Jamestown, and I think Williamsville South ends up winning this Class A championship game. I think they upset Jamestown. I think they played them well enough in Week 2 where they've got the scout on them. Will South is going to knock off Jamestown. If they face them, I think Will South wins the title, but if they end up facing Jamestown in that second round, I think Will South knocks them off.
Wow, that is that's bulletin board material right there. We better keep that on tape when Week 10 comes around. And who knows, if they do pull it off, you're never going to let us hear the end of that.
Oh, it would be next week. It would be 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, if Will South beats Jamestown, we're never going to hear the end of that.
But they got to be Kenmore West first.
Yeah, that's true. That'll be a fun game. All right, Class B. I hate to dismiss everybody else, but Maritime's so good. Iroquois is so good. I think we're doomed to have a repeat. Doomed is the wrong word. I can't think of the right word, but it's inevitable that it's Maritime and Iroquois in the final. Do you have a case that somebody else is going to be in there?
I think the best non-1 seed is Olean. After seeing how they played at Pioneer last night, I've seen West Seneca East play too. I saw them play at Iroquois. They ended up losing in that game. They could have beaten the Chiefs on the road, but kind of let it slip away at the end. But I really like Olean's offense. I think that they're dynamic. I think that their quarterback, Silvas, is a really, really solid player. Like we said, they got a long road trip to Albion, but if they can knock them off, that's a really interesting semifinal matchup between Olean and Iroquois. You talk about Kleitz is a 3-year starting quarterback at Iroquois. Silvas is a 3-year starter as well, so he's got that same veteran experience, maybe not as much as in the playoffs. But if there is a non-1 seed to win in Class B, I think that it's Olean. But ultimately, I think you're right. I think it's Maritime Iroquois in a rematch again, but I think I like the Chiefs this year.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think I like the Chiefs this year. Just every time that their back is against the wall, they somehow find a way to win games. I've been down there for 2 games this year. They beat Pioneer. It was 19-14. They had a lead. They ended up going down late. And then Kleitz back against the wall, late minutes of the game, drove them down the field, put them ahead. Same case against West Seneca East a week after that. I just think that they've got the senior leadership, the experience, and the chip on their shoulder that they lost to Maritime in the finals last year. So if we see that rematch.
And that was a close game. I think that was an
that
overtime,
was
right?
double overtime.
Yeah, that was double overtime. Maritime and
in
Iroquois in the final,
last
right?
year. So that was an overtime game at Johnny B. Wiley in the sectional championship. Yeah, Tom and I did that game.
Yeah.
So, but if that ends up being the B matchup, I think Iroquois wins that rematch this year. But don't be surprised if Olean gets there. And that's a tough thing for Pioneer, too. We didn't even mention their game against Maritime. One of their running backs last night, Jaden Okenvillisack, tough ankle injury, took him out of the game. I really like Jack Bunsey, but I don't know if he can carry that load by himself for Pioneer, especially against Maritime. So if they had both those running backs, they might have a chance to shock Maritime. But like you said, people have also been disrespecting Maritime all year, and I don't want to do that. I think that they beat Pioneer pretty easily now.
All right, Class C. I think we have the 8 teams. I know they all haven't played each other. We have 3 divisions,
and we're not sure how that whole bracket looks.
I still think Medina is going to make it to the stadium. I think they're the favorite to win, and I could take either Depew or Fredonia. I think Fredonia would give Medina a tougher out in the stadium, but I think it's going to come down to those top 3 seeds. I don't really think any of the bottom 5 seeds have a chance of making it to the stadium.
Yeah, I think it's really between those 3 division winners. And just with how Depew looked against a tough team like Lancaster last night, they got beat. I know Fredonia isn't Lancaster, but if Depew can get past Southwestern, which we don't want to write them off, Southwestern I think is the lower seed in this entire bracket that has the best chance to win on the road in the first round. I think you get that Depew-Fredonia matchup in the semis. I think Fredonia wins that, and I think Medina wins the first 2 easily. And I think you get that Fredonia-Medina matchup at the stadium, and I just think Medina's too talented, and they got the experience from last year's playoff run. I think they'll repeat as Section 6 champions.
I think so, too. All right, Class D. Again, we talked about it, 4 teams. I think it's going to be CSP. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and it looks like they would be on a collision. Obviously, they have a tough game against Franklinville-Ellicottville in the first round, but if they get over that, I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. This is a well-coached team by Ty Harper. I think they can pull off a win in the stadium against Randolph.
Yeah, I have to be honest, I have not seen anything in Class D this year, so this is all just based off of really guessing and hearsay and box scores. I think that semifinal matchup between CSP and Franklinville-Ellicottville is going to be a dogfight just because those are 2 really tough teams. And like I said earlier, they both have a stake to make as they are the defending Section 6 champions in Class D. CSP won 2 in a row. Were in C last year, so they never lost that crown. Franklinville-Ellicottville won last year. I think whoever comes out of that game and faces Randolph, assuming they get by Portville, is just going to be a little bit banged up, and I think Randolph having that easier first-round matchup is going to be a big deal. So I think Randolph ends up winning the matchup with the winner of CSP, Franklinville-Ellicottville, at the stadium, and they roll into the state playoffs undefeated.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap up our Section 6 playoff football show. But we're not going to stop this stream. We're going to take a few minutes break, and when we come back, we're going to transition to talk about the game behind us. You can see St. Francis warming up. They're getting set to host Canisius in a Big Monsignor Martin game, number 1 seed in the playoffs on the line. We'll be back. We're here on Western New York Athletics.
When it's time to sell your home, start with a visit to howardhanna.com, ranked the #1 real estate site for sellers. A few clicks will show you the sales price you can expect for your home. We can get you the most money in the quickest amount of time because we know where the local buyers are and how to reach them. So if it's time to sell your home, visit howardhanna.com today, and we'll match you with a local Howard Hanna agent to sell your home fast.
I love being home.
If you've been injured in an auto accident, large or small, call 681-4088. RES Physical Medicine and Rehab right away. If you are in pain or just sore, don't take chances. Call RES today and take advantage of their 24 to 48-hour appointment pledge. With no copays, RES will help navigate the confusing world of no-fault insurance with you, so you can concentrate on getting better. 681-4088. RES Physical Medicine and Rehab. The most important call you can make after an auto accident.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you. Western New York Immediate Care provides quick, quality care for non-emergent injuries and illnesses. Go to wnyimmediatecare.com for more information.
Does he do car?
Forget about it.
How about home?
Forget about it.
Does he get good rates?
Forget about it.
And you're saying there's no problem too big for this guy?
Forget about it. Oh, this is Johnny, the guy we've been talking about. Johnny, this is Paul Wolf.
Mr. Wolf, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for the invite.
Not a problem. It's Paul, not Mr. Wolf.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Johnny, forget about it. For all your insurance needs, call 835-WOLF. And
why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? Or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do? Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
All right, and we're back at St. Francis High School. You're now watching the Canisius St. Francis pregame show. We're, of course, live from Napoleon Family Field on this beautiful facility. I think it's one of the best in Western New York. And then you see it's behind your camera, but they have the beautiful Giglick Family Athletic Center where sometimes they have parties. They can watch over and see the games. We actually did a show up there a couple years ago. But this is a beautiful facility at St. Francis, as you can see behind us. And we're getting ready for a big game. This is pretty simple. 3 teams in Monsignor Martin A Division. Both of these teams have been St. Joe's. So the winner gets a bye and home field in the for the Monsignor Martin Championship in this game. So, John, what do you expect?
Well, first, what a way to cap off the regular season, right? I mean, we just spent roughly the last 45, 50 minutes or so talking about the Section 6 playoffs, which are coming up next week. But that season's over. We still got some Monsignor Martin regular season football left before their playoffs. But big rivalry game. Not too often you get a Saturday night matchup here in Western New York for high school football. So this is a fun way to end the season.
And you know what? It's perfect because it was rivalry week for the section.
Yeah.
And this is a big rivalry as well to kind of just cap off the weekend.
Right, and you know what? And I don't want to knock St. Joe's, but just with how much they've struggled this year, this is really the big matchup in the Monsignor Martin A division. These two teams likely to meet up again in the finals. So this is a big game. You want to get that bye. You want to get yourself some more rest before that championship game. Get that home field advantage, like you said. And just looking at these teams coming into this game, while St. Francis is at home tonight, they've lost 3 of their last 4 games. On the other side, Canisius has won 3 of their last 4. So these teams coming into this game in different parts of the season right now, or at least their season in a different their seasons are at different points right now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. St. Francis trying to break out of a tough streak. Canisius trying to stay rolling going into the playoffs. And like we said, it'll be interesting to see which team comes out on top to get that home field advantage for the Monsignor Martin championship game.
Yeah, you have St. Francis is led by quarterback Steve Otremba Jr. I believe he's the son of the AD here at St. Francis, and he's having a fantastic season for the Red Raiders.
And they've lost 3 in a row to Canisius. They lost to the Red Raiders twice last year. They lost to them in the championship game for the Monsignor Martin League back in 2019. So they want to snap that streak as well. And they both have one more regular season game after this. St. Francis will play at home against McDowell. Canisius will host Cathedral Prep from Erie. But like I said, they want to, kind of get the upper hand for the championship game. We presume whoever gets the 2 seed will beat St. Joe's just because the Mirage have struggled this year. I don't want to totally write them off, but this will probably be the championship game. And, I said to Tom Prince earlier, is that one factor in this game? Despite how well these two teams, these two programs know each other, do you think either team might hold a few things back and try to save it for that presumable matchup in the playoffs?
I would not count it out. These are very smart coaching staffs. They might try to hold it back. And especially if one team is able to get a lead early on and they can just kind of stick with that game plan, just kind of save what you have for that second game. And keep in mind, if you're Canisius, I think you have a bit advantage from an experience standpoint. You have quarterback Tyler Baker, 3-year starter, won the state title in his sophomore year. Obviously, last year they didn't have it. And I think that it's got to be your big advantage.
Yeah, and I think that's the other big thing for Canisius, too, is you want to get a chance to get back to that state championship game. You didn't get state playoffs last year because of COVID, so you really feel like you didn't get a chance to defend the title you won 2 years ago. You want to get that shot this year, but this is a tough St. Francis team they're going to have to get through. Like I said, they're kind of reeling a little bit. They've lost 3 of 4, lost by 22 last week to St. Francis de Sales, but we'll see what happens. They got home field tonight, and they want to get home field, like we said, for the playoffs, too. So about a half hour away from kickoff. Tom Prince, Stu Boyer, going to have the call for us tonight. I'll be down on the field. We'll be talking to the coaches at halftime. And like we said, it'll be a big production. Final game of the regular season as we get ready for Section 6 playoffs starting next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for these playoffs. Section 6 starting next week. We know Monsignor Martin will start soon. And then Monsignor Martin Class B is also happening. We know Joe's and Timon played earlier. I forget what the score was. And then you're going to have, 3-team race between Simon, O'Hara, and St. Mary's, which I just real quick want to mention. St. Mary's is having a fantastic season.
Yeah.
Christian Lewis, I believe, leads all of the area in rushing yards.
Yeah, no, they're a solid team, and they beat St. Joe's at the beginning of the year and have really just kind of taken off from there. Be interesting to see how they would fare against, these large school teams. It's a shame, you can't throw them into these playoffs as well.
Well, we did have the Joe's Sweet Home game, which, I was I was a little worried going in whether that might have been a blowout the way St. Joe's is playing. But that was, as you saw, very close.
Yeah,
Joe's
they
had a
played
chance
them
to at the
tough.
very end.
Yeah, they played them tough in the second half. Like you said, had a chance to win at the end. Just got intercepted on the final drive. But, bounce back year for St. Joe's coming up next season, I think. And, that playoff game against Canisius or St. Francis, whoever loses tonight, will be a good experience builder for that Joe's team before the end of the season.
All right, and I see Tom Prince. I believe we're going to – all right, we're going to bring From where? Okay.
From where?
Oh. All right, we're going to bring over Vic. Why don't you come over here from Canisius, Vic Mazzaro. You know what? Can we? Why don't you grab a chair here, take a seat, Russ adjust our camera. Vic, this Canisius-St. Francis rivalry is obviously huge. We had a Joe Daniel who is an alumni of St. Francis. He also helps us out in West Uric Athletics, and he says, as much as there's a big. He said St. Francis really hates Canisius. I know you guys have your big rivalry. Your main one is Joe's, but you guys must hold a special place in your heart for St. Francis.
Yeah, all the Monsignor Martin games, these league games, they're all big games in every sport, really. So I think we kind of just look at them as all even big games, check it off of the game. We're just looking to get a win.
What's the student presence going to be like? You got to feel not intimidated, but a little bit of pressure going into visiting territory, right? I mean, as a former student in Western New York at a high school, I've been to some big football games myself. There's just as much pressure on you guys, I feel like, for these big games as there is for the guys on the field, right?
Yeah, like you said, might be a little bit of pressure going into away games. I think our job as a student section is to kind of make it a home game, make every game a home game, helping out, coming out and cheering on our players.
What's the strategy? I mean, do you guys know anything about the St. Francis players? Some of you guys got to be friends with some of the guys from St. Francis as well, whether you went to middle school together or from the same towns, play other sports with them or against them. I mean, do you guys do even some research on some guys, make sure you've got some things to kind of get in their heads with during the game?
Yeah, a fair share of people, Canisius, we have a lot of Southtown guys, but we're trying to make it a lot about our team. We're not trying to make it all about St. Francis. We're here to support Canisius and cheer our guys on.
Oh, see, they're taking the high road.
I got to ask one question. I didn't check Twitter, and I see you're wearing white. So is white out the theme, or what's the theme?
White out tonight.
All right, white out. I love these schools that, the student sections, they do the theme. So they're doing white out tonight. Makes sense since they're on the road.
St. Francis is wearing
white.
black, too.
Yeah.
Good contrast. They really thought this thing through.
We're in our all-white uniforms today, too.
Yeah. Solidarity.
Solidarity. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us. Kickoff is about 25 minutes away from us right now. It'll be Stu Boyer, Tom Prince in the call. John will be on the sideline, so be sure to tune into that. But for right now, we're going to say goodbye. So thanks for tuning in to our combo show, Section 6 playoff preview and St. Francis Canisius pregame. Have a great night.
When it's time to sell your home, start with a visit to howardhanna.com, ranked the #1 real estate site for sellers. A few clicks will show you the sales price you can expect for your home. We can get you the most money in the quickest amount of time because we know where the local buyers are and how to reach them. So if it's time to sell your home, visit howardhanna.com today, and we'll match you with a local Howard Hanna agent to sell your home fast.
I love being home.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you. Western New York Immediate Care provides quick, quality care for non-emergent injuries and illnesses. Go to WNYimmediatecare.com for more information.